Hey y'all, I'm Jerdy, and in this video, we're going to go over Prop Paladin in Phase 6 of Season of Discovery. Now, a couple of things before we get started. One, I know a week ago I did make a BIS list discussion video. That was a preliminary video for this one just because I wasn't super confident in releasing that information to y'all. But after testing a queue on the PTR, which I will talk about in another video hopefully tomorrow night, I feel like the lists I had out then are good to talk about now, and these lists are now available on WoWhead. Speaking of WoWhead, if you're new to this channel and you're watching me, I am the WoWhead guide writer. So I know I would reference and link WoWhead in the past because the previous guide writer was amazing and still is, but now I can go straight to the source because the source is, well, it's me now. So with that being said, let's get on with the video. I will also be talking as if I didn't make that video before, so you might hear some repeated information. I just don't want people to have to go back and watch another video to understand things in this video. So let's first talk about everything that we get in this phase of Season of Discovery, because there's actually quite a bit. Of course, there's our new tier set, the tier 2.5 set. I always thought it was kind of silly that we had a 2.5 set and they just didn't call this tier 3. This is the Avenger's Will set, and the Protection one has some pretty interesting set bonuses. The 2-piece, which a lot of us in the Paladin Discord have agreed is very attractive, is your Blessing of Sanctuary also grants 10% increased stats on the player when cast on yourself. That's nice. We like that. To get extra Blessing of Kings on top of our Aspect of the Lion. And then our 4-piece, this is the more controversial one and not in a positive light, unfortunately. Your Shield of Righteousness causes your next Holy Light to be instant cast. If cast on yourself, will refund 100% of its mana cost and be unaffected by Guarded by the Light. In a raid setting, it's cool as a util to like heal your friends if someone's low on health, or heal yourself if you need it. It's really cool when it comes to like solo farming content. I just think this kind of set is like 2 phases too late. This would have been really cool in phase 4, right? I would have loved this in phase 4. But right now, when we're 1 phase away from, the end of Season of Discovery, not so much, right? We also have something called Timeworn gear, and any piece with Timeworn on it increases a proc chance of a ring. This ring is our signet of the Bronze Dragonflight. This is a ring you get from a new faction in phase 6, the Brood of Nosdormu. Now, if your guild has been doing Scarab Lord, or if you have been doing Scarab Lord, you know what this rep is when you are farming bugs at 3 in the morning in Silithus. But once you achieve friendly with this faction, you will be given a ring that has a proc chance on it. For tanks, we get 2 options. We get one that increases our dodge and parry reduction, and then we also can pick the DPS one that increases an extra swing proc. We'll talk more about that when we get on with the BIS list. And on top of that, like I just mentioned with the rings, we also have dodge and parry reduction gear in the game. This is known as Expertise, the Burning Crusade, or Wrath of the Lich King, and it's a really strong stat for tanks. You can see it right here in our tier 2.5 helm, reduces the chance for your attacks to be dodged or parried by 1%. A lot of options have been brought to this game, including some cool crafting gear. That's not our BIS, but definitely good for like catch-up gear and like pre-BIS options if you don't have any tier on you. So when talking about our BIS list, something that people might be upset about is that we are completely getting rid of our tier 2 Draconic Protection set and our Core Forge sets. Those are going away. We're not going to recommend those for your best gear options possible. Can you run those? Absolutely. We're just not really going to bring that up anymore as we progress in Season of Discovery. However, though, what will stay are the 2 and 4-piece sets for the Retribution Draconic tier 2. At the minimum, we'll always want that 2-piece set because not having to reseal after casting Judgment is just too strong. And the fact that we get a 20% damage bonus from it is just icing on the cake. Even if it didn't have that damage increase on it, I would still always recommend this because not having to reseal is just really, really nice. We'll also be pushing into the 4-set bonus, which we did recommend as an option last phase. We just didn't recommend it as much as we did the other set. I know that could be frustrating, especially if you don't have a 4 set yet. That's why I wanted to get that video out last week to get y'all at least some information. It shouldn't be too hard to get these pieces, so don't fret if you don't have the specific pieces on what we need. So if you go on WoWhead, you'll see I have 3 sets up here. There's the Malleable BIS, there's the Sheath of Light BIS, and the Malleable Avenger 4-set BIS. Side note, Malleable Avenger, I think it's just a badass name. I just wish this set did more damage. So we'll be going in order of what's the most mitigation versus what's the most damage. So the most mitigation you can get is going to be from the Malleable Avenger 4-set BIS, where we do run the 4-set tier 2.5 protection. Now, we are not running this for the set bonus, just for the stats that these pieces offer, because they do offer a large amount of health and defense. You can see right here, we run helm, spalders, chest, and legs for the 4-set bonus, and we'll be running red bracers and red boots for the tier 2 red bonus. New items that appear in this game are going to be Mark of Cthulhu, that drops off the last boss of AQ 20 or AQ 40, the bigger AQ, big AQ, large AQ, which has expertise, hit, stamina, and defense. Just a really juicy neck that any tank is going to want. Cloak of the Golden Hive, agility, strength, stamina, and defense. Just a really strong mitigation cloak. Also from Big AQ. I'm going to say Big AQ, even though that's probably annoying, right? These gauntlets are pretty much inarguable. Like, you want these. This is the gauntlets of steadfast determination, 20 strength, 14 agility, 18 stamina, and expertise and defense. Jesus. Yeah, you want these, right? This one is also nuts because Angelista belt, strength, agility, stamina, 2% expertise, 7 defense. No argument. You want this belt and you want these hands. There's no way you can argue that you don't want these. And then for rings, right now for all 3 sets, I do recommend the extra attack proc DPS ring, only because you're not losing a lot of stamina. You're still going to be defense cap, and this one gives us a little more damage and threat for that sacrifice. So with the DPS one, every piece of Timeworn gear we put on, which is going to be our belt and our hands, increases our chance by 1% for an extra attack proc. The tank one just increases our expertise by 1% per Timeworn piece. So it's not a make or break, and when you do reach Exalted, you can trade the ring. So it's not a permanent choice. So let's say you go into Nax and you want the expertise ring, you can just trade it off for some gold, I think, if you really want to go back. And then, believe it or not, Hand of Justice is just still very, very strong with malleable builds. You can't go wrong having this. If you don't have it yet, I'm sorry, you probably still want this. And you can honestly solo farm this trinket if you're in full tier 1 or tier 2. It really isn't that hard. So you don't really even need a group for this. Next, we have a crafted trinket. This is a new trinket in Season Discovery. Lodestone of Retaliation, 23 stamina, expertise, 11 defense, and when you're struck in combat, inflicts 80 nature damage and causes twice as much threat. Now, this won't proc as much because I don't believe it procs when you mitigate, block, miss, dodge, or parry, but it still is nice, and it does have a nice Thorns effect on it. We did get a new Libram of the Righteous, which increases the damage of our hammer and Shield of Righteousness by 3%. This still is not being simmed correctly the last time I checked it, so it shows as a 100 DPS loss over the Avenger's shield rune. I don't think that's correct, but it won't hurt getting this. This is also a crafted item, by the way. This is crafted through enchanting, and I'm pretty sure the pattern will drop in Big AQ, so it might be a bit before you get this one. I'm going to talk about weapons and shields at the end of this video after we go through the other set, just because there are some options and I want to discuss them a little more. So let's talk about these next 2 sets, the Malleable BIS and the Sheath of Light BIS. If you look at these 2 sets, they look nearly identical, with only 2 pieces being different, the neck and the trinket. So for the Sheath of Light BIS, we still have Blaze Fury Medallion for its Blaze Fury proc, and another new crafted trinket called Speedstone, which gives us 2% crit and increases our attack speed by 2%. For Malleable BIS, we're foregoing Blaze Fury finally for Mark of Cthulhu and using Hand of Justice. I know y'all are getting mad in the comments. It's just too good. Remember, you can solo farm this. You can do this. I believe in you. Put Classic Fresh down for like an hour and just try farming this. Side note, before I explain the differences between these 2 sets, you will notice that on your Avenger's gear and pretty much all of your gear, you don't have a lot of block value. The only piece of block value from the 2.5 set is on the helm. So if you do want to take off the expertise you get from your shoulders for the block value you get from the helm, you can definitely do that, and it's pretty much the same DPS if you want that trade-off. But what's the difference between these 2 builds? Well, it's the belt rune that they're named after. So Sheath of Light runs Sheath of Light and Fanaticism, and this is a spell power based build. You are going to be using Seal of Righteousness over Martyrdom in this build. And if you want more damage, you will go to Righteous Vengeance on your back and Purifying Power on your wrists over the Righteous runes, and then you would obviously swap to the Avenger's Libram as well on top of that. Now, this is only for like single target fights. I would not recommend having Purified Power if you're on trash, right? So please don't do that, because that's a strong AoE ability. And then same with Shield of Righteousness. Although it's a single target ability, it does generate a lot of threat. So whatever your hammer doesn't hit the other target with shield. And then for even more damage, you can swap to a Spell Power Flask instead of a Health Flask. That's just after kind of prod is done though, and you want to focus on upping your damage. I would not recommend doing that the first few weeks of AQ. For Malleable, we run our traditional tank runes. The only thing you can swap is that you can run Wrath instead of improved Sanctuary, as it is around a 60 DPS buff to run this, and you're not really losing that much mitigation. And both these sets run 4-piece Draconic Ret, being your helm, legs, bindings, and boots. These both run the Force Set bonus that buff our judgment. Again, I know that could be a bit of a bummer if you don't have that, but it won't be too hard to get, I promise. There is another build that you can do for like the ultimate damage for sacrificing a lot of mitigation and health, and I'm not going to call it a meme build yet, but it borderlines that area, and this runs 4-piece Draconic Ret and 4-piece tier 2.5 Ret. The tier 2.5's Force Set bonus, your basic attacks increase the damage of your next exorcism cast within 20 seconds by 40%, stacking up to 3 times, meaning you can get a 120% exorcism damage buff, which is insane in one of our main abilities. This is also a Sheath of Light build. Now, there are many ways to go about it, and I'll make a separate video probably for it, because there's also a really cool sword and board DPS build that exists out there. It's not a tank build at all, but it's a sword and board DPS build. And side note, that's like my favorite class fantasy like style to play. That's why I loved red tanking in phase 2 and phase 3. I love the shotgun build, and whenever I play a Souls game, I always play sword and board. So it is something I'll probably mess around with once that gear becomes once that gear becomes available. The only reason I'm really not promoting this is because you're limited on tier when it comes to your guild, and I don't want you to pick all the red pieces and then make your healer suffer in the process. Again, if you're a high-end parsing guild and your guild knows what you're getting into doing this, it's a build you can run for the most amount of damage for significant mitigation loss. And the reason I'm not really promoting this, and the reason why this won't be on WoWhead, is because I did the AQ and I just don't see this being a very optimal build. Will people run it? Yes. I mean, if you saw the logs from last phase, there were tanks running the ZG set for that damage buff. I don't think it's on that territory of Mimi, but I do think it borders that, and I don't want to promote that to like the general public, just because I don't want guilds getting mad at me when their tanks are trying to do this and they're dying. As I'm also recording this video, I did notice something I might change on WoWhead, and that is your ring option. Angelista's Touch is a good ring, and it does have hit, and it does have 9 defense and 17 stamina. However, like I mentioned earlier, you don't have pretty much any block value gear on you anymore in this phase. So you could go with the Crimson Overlord's Band from ZG. It does sim higher on DPS. It does have a little less stamina, but it also has block value on it. I'm thinking about changing that as I'm looking at this right now. But that ring is also a very solid option. And if you want more options on gearing, the rest of this article down below has a whole bunch of options, including nature resist pieces for fights like Princess Huhuran and Viscidus. But let's talk about weapons now. So your best single target weapon is going to be Truthbearer. I know my Thunderfury friends, I know that can be disappointing. It's just, it does not come close to single target damage like Truthbearer does. However, Thunderfury is still a very strong weapon for its AoE threat, its debuff, and I'm definitely using it on AQ prog. If you have Thunderfury and Truthbearer, don't feel like you're griefing running Thunderfury. It will help your raid out. If you don't have either of those and you're rank 14, the Grand Marshal Swiftblade is also very strong. 1.8 weapon speed, almost 62 DPS, 13 stamina, 1 crit, 28 attack power, and then its cool little PvP effect. After that, there's really not much. Since we're foregoing our tier 2 Draconic 6 set with the Reckoning procs, all slow weapons become really unattractive. I don't even have Maladath on here. Although, again, it's not a bad weapon, especially if you have Midas Stormwind. I might put it on here. But if you have Midas Stormwind, which increases your attack speed, it does become a stronger weapon. So Maladath still isn't bad. If nobody in your raid wants Ahn'qiraj Ripper, then you can take it, I guess. Do not take this first from a DPS who needs this, though. You are trolling if you do that. Blackguard, still strong. And if you have Bloodlord's Defender, which is just Blackguard Light and not crafted, then use that too. It's still a very strong weapon. Remember, fast weapons are still our BIS and will always be our BIS unless something really changes for Nax. Shields, we get a lot of options here. I'm going to default to Blessed Karaji Bulwark for its 20 stamina, 3% block, increases your block by 15, and 8 defense. If you want some more offensive stats for a little more damage, you can go with Buru's Skull Fragment. This drops off small AQ AQ 10, or if you're a purist, AQ 20 still. It's just the lesser AQ for 11 strength, 20 stamina, and 10 defense. We also have new crafted shields with tuned force reactive disc, which looks really cool, and I definitely will play with this if it's not NG specific. Blacksmiths also get a shield that looks like a cool PvP shield with 2% block, 14 block value, and it's cool. When struck by a harmful spell, the caster of that spell has a 20% chance to be silenced for 3 seconds. That's a high proc rate, by the way, 20 seconds. Pretty cool in PvP. And speaking of PvP, if you're rank 14, Grand Marshal's Aegis, 10 strength, 35 stamina, a passive Thorns proc, and it's fun PvP damage reduction. If you're rank 14, this is a really good shield. It just doesn't have defense on it. So yeah, a lot of options for shields this phase. And when talking about our talents, you can either go on the talents under the BIS options or go to the specific talents, builds, and runes category on WoWhead. We now forego Reckoning in all the builds. We're not going to go 5 out of 5. There's no need because we don't have a set bonus that buffs this. So instead, we're going to take those 2 points and put them into Divine Strength just for a little more damage. You can also go full parry if you want to. It's just not needed. You could also go Pursuit of Justice if you really want to as well, but I just recommend doing minor speed to boots, as the 4% strength outdoes any DPS enchant for feet. But yeah, that's pretty much it in regards to the BIS list, you guys. I highly suggest you check out the article and read stuff like the new consumables and buffs we have. There are a bunch of new consumes that also give us nature resistance. The article for the BIS list also has nature resist gear on it if you're trying to get it. And speaking of nature resistance, some pieces that aren't too hard to get, or specifically one piece that I think you should have in your bags, is the trinket from DFC, Gloaming Tree Heart, 10 stamina, and increases your nature resistance by 90 for 30 seconds on a 3-minute cooldown. That is 90 resistance for 30 seconds. That's a very, very strong trinket. Another good nature resist trinket is Soul of Thunder off of Prince Thunderin in the Crystal Veil. He also drops a nature resist cape. And WoWhead also has a guide for other nature resist pieces that have existed before SOD in the original vanilla client if you're trying to farm that. But yeah, guys, I hope you liked this video. I'm sorry it's so close to the raid. I hope this helps. Remember, these guides are live on WoWhead. If you have a WoWhead account and you want to leave a rating, go for it. You don't have to. Some cool news. I am now partnered on YouTube. I hit 1,000 subs. Fun fact, my 1,000 sub was my mom. That was pretty cute and wholesome. But thank y'all so much for all the kind contributions you do, whether it's a view, a comment, recommending me. It's very, very much appreciated. And if you like other classic stuff, I will be going over more than just Paladin stuff on this channel. But as always, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for saying hi. I'll see y'all on AQ, and I'll hopefully have an AQ video tomorrow night, as I want to get this not just for my guild, but to kind of help everybody because there's not a lot of information out there. Bye, guys.